All right, welcome to the differentiation breakout room. I think we'll go ahead and get started. Uh, there is a lot of flexibility that you can have with some of the tools that we use to support differentiation. But just to make sure that we're all normed on what we're talking about, so that's a very nebulous concept, and it gets talked about in I think just about every teacher prep class, and it's also talked about in LEAP. And so the first thing we just kind of want to orient around is that differentiation, as you see on the slide here, it plays many roles, and it clearly informs like our approach to culturally responsive education, and is aligned with DPS's commitment around that, as you can see reflected in LEAP around I6. And this video gives you a little bit more information about. It's a video specifically about I6 and how differentiation supports our students. Let's go ahead and hit the next slide. Okay, and this is our connection to CRE specifically. This is DPS Practice 2, frequently collect student work and student performance data, analyze results by traditionally marginalized student groups, identify learning gaps, reflect on how classroom instruction led to those gaps, and develop next steps to effectively and rapidly address areas of concern. And then we're going to drill down even further into key action 3 and thinking about how we can routinely reflect on results of a lesson and analyze the effectiveness of instructional practices in order to determine next steps. And most of the foundation of differentiation work out there comes from the work of Ann Tomlinson. And you can see here her differentiation framework. We're mostly going to be really focusing on the ways that the how to do differentiation through content, process, and product. But you can see a lot of really useful ways of thinking about differentiation reflected in this graph. All right, so we're talking about product, process, and content. So differentiating by product. So thinking about the end product that you have students wanting to complete as part of the work, and giving them options on doing it in different ways. So as you can see, we just have like a couple basic examples here of the ways in which you can give students options. And the nice thing about having them have access, and this is from my perspective as the MyTech program manager, is just so exciting to be able to have all of our students have access to each of their own personal devices for a variety of reasons, but particularly because it allows them to create more easily than they would be otherwise. Okay, process. So as we understand, students are going to process information differently. And so giving them options on the ways in which they actually process the content that you provided, or the particular standards that you want them to master or demonstrate their learning around. And so here are just, again, some few examples of, in a general sense, of how to differentiate process. So using tiered activities, where students are actually doing the same work, they're just doing it in different ways or with different levels of scaffolding. Then having them own, so that second bullet point, having them own, building out the agendas of the work that they would be doing, that personally supports their processing. And then giving students hands-on materials. The nice thing is there are also online manipulatives for math, and so I've seen those used really well. So giving access to those kinds of things, just to give those kids who may need additional time or additional techniques for processing. And then actually honestly varying the amount of time that you're giving them to do the processing can be really helpful. And then content. So you have particular goals that you want students to meet in terms of their understanding. That doesn't necessarily mean they all need to consume or receive the same content if the focus is on the skill or on that mastery. And so again, more examples just in a general sense of the ways you could differentiate the content, and really want to give more time for exploring. So I'm going through this very, very quickly, as I want to make sure that we get a chance to cover the couple of techniques in Schoology around individual assigns and grading groups, in rather than getting too bogged down in the definition of differentiation. And so you'll see here, these are very specific examples. And as I said, I'm filling in for EJ this morning, and EJ put together all of these example sandbox assignments that you can attach to your own Schoology sandbox courses or your regular courses by making copies. But I'm not going to actually like dive into these right this second, but just know that we have some examples of how to differentiate by product and by process and by content. And so I'll show you kind of what it would look like to incorporate those here once we go into the follow along with me section. And so really that's what we're going to do. So, if you are feeling good about uh, oh, I know differentiation, but I do actually want to play around with some tools, but you feel like you can do that independently, please feel free to do that. You can see on the right, on the column on the right on slide 36, you can review the LEAP differentiation video, read the articles around what differentiated instruction is and is not, and start working on designing a differentiated learning activity for your students. Play around with the creating grading groups, play around with individual assignments, and then you can also consider some other tools that you could use to support differentiation, like Read and Write, which is a really great accessibility tool that reads sites and also helps students write. It has some word prediction software in addition to a variety of other tools. It's just an incredibly useful tool. And then voice typing in Google Docs. I will tell you, as a parent of a fourth grader who doesn't particularly like to type, she uses voice typing all the time. And she's able to really develop her thoughts really effectively that way. So if you're working independently, you are free to kind of just jump in and do those things. If you are interested in following along with me, I'm just going to demonstrate very, very quickly how to use grading grips to push differentiated assignments to students, and then also just and then utilizing different assignment types. So Dre, I'm wondering, should I take over presenting, or do you want to present as I talk? What do you think would make most sense?
Do you want to go ahead? Do you want to cover how to do that in Schoology?
Yeah, I assumed that's what I was doing in EJ's place, but did you?
So I'm gonna hit those. You did an awesome job covering EJ's slides. So like Steve was saying, if you would like to hang on and learn about how Schoology can help you with that differentiation, we're really going to focus on the ways that you can push out different assignments to a variety of your students, along with utilizing that assignment feature, and not just the cookie cutter way of like making sure that your students turn stuff in, but really going into seeing how students can submit different ways. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and just jump right in. And so the first thing that I want to just preview is how to create grading groups. And what grading groups do, contrary to their name, it's not like really about grading. It's about how we're pushing out those materials to students. And so those grading groups are just going to allow me to very quickly give assignments to specific groups of students. And so I just want to show you real fast how this can look. So if I go into my members tab, you'll see that I have all of these grading groups right here. And then you'll also notice that once my students are assigned to a grading group, it's going to highlight it right underneath their name. And so while my students will be able to see like that they are getting specific assignments, they don't necessarily see that like they're attached to a specific group. So like Leon here, he will not see that he's in Team A, Team Foxes, Team Schoology, main class, and boys. He'll just get the assignments that I'm assigning to those groups. And so again, as you can see, students can be assigned to multiple groups. You can have a student attached to 50 groups if you want them to. I don't recommend that because that's a lot of groups. But to do that, I'm going to show everybody in our Schoology course that everybody's already a member of, I can go into my members tab. And then right here on the side where it says organize members into grading groups, I'm just going to go ahead and click that button. I'm going to give my group name a title. And then all I have to do is click on the students that I want in that group. Then I hit create grading group, and that group has been created. Now, if I'm going back in, let's say that I get some students that move around in groups, or I get a couple of new students added to my roster, what I can do is I can hit my gear icon here, I can edit it, and then by clicking the name again, I'm going to unhighlight it. It means that that person is no longer in that grading group, or I can continue to click around and add more students as I need to. And so what that does is it allows for me to have pre-populated groups of students. So if I know that my students are going to be doing a project and they already self-selected into the groups that they want to be in, my group that has volcanoes, they're all going to get resources for volcanoes. I can push out those materials to that group. And so what that looks like is when I go into my materials, I'm just going to add an assignment. And I'm going to do all of the necessary things that I need to do. So I'm going to give it a title, give it a description, make sure it's attached to a category. And then down here in my options, that little triangle, I'm going to click on it. And then I'm going to get this assign to box. Now, with this, I can either start typing in a name, and I can choose students individually, or I can use my grading groups. And so when I do that, this means that because it's only assigned to group one, only group one is going to have access to that material. And so then if you go into the assignment, if you're in the group, you're going to be able to see that assignment. And if you're not in the group, that assignment isn't even going to show up on your page for you. I really loved using this as a classroom teacher because pushing out those differentiated assignments, even when it came to, these students get an assignment with extra supports and extra scaffolds that the rest of my kiddos don't need, it made it really easy for me to do that. And it takes out the confusion of making sure my kids know which assignment is theirs. And so we don't have to worry about, are the students who are supposed to be in group B in the group B assignment? Because that used to take at least like 15, 20 minutes of my time, is just making sure that everybody's in the correct assignment. I'm running around trying to figure out who has access to what. This takes all of that out of it. Students only have access to what you give them access to. And then when I go into my grade book too, that's an ungraded material. So I'm going to pull that up here. You'll see that it's grayed out for all of my students that don't have access to it. So in terms of a document for setting up grading groups, I don't know if we have like a how-to guide for that, but it's literally just that. You just go through in members. I can show you again if you want. So again, I'm going to go into my members tab here. And then on the sidebar, I'm just going to hit this organize members into grading groups. It'll then like switch to add grading group, give it a name, select my students, create the grading group, and go from there. And then as I previewed before, you can have tons of grading groups. You can have students assigned to multiple grading groups. This was really great when I was doing my design-based learning class because they were switching groups all of the time. So it made it really simple for me to not have to keep track of that like master spreadsheet of what groups my students were in. The other thing that is relatively more new is that you can individually assign entire folders to groups and to students. And so if you have like a project that your kids are doing, and so kiddos are either working on volcanoes or hurricanes or forest fires, and they choose one, you can have an entire folder of resources that help with the research of that help with the individual assignments that they need to, get the information. And you can give those entire folders to that specific group. So what I can do is I can go to my gear icon here. I'm going to go to individually assign. And this one looks a little bit different. So when I'm individually assigning folders, this is the screen that I'm going to get. And so I can either go again by student individually, or I can select my grading groups. And then I just go ahead and hit assign. And so now that group will have access to the folder, and the rest of my members will not have access to the folder. So they're not even going to see it on their page. It does not exist for them. I'm going to pause. Any questions about individual assign or creating grading groups so far? Okay, awesome. And so if you ever need a refresher, there is a GIF on the slide deck, slide 37, and it just goes through, it literally like goes over and over and over again, how to add students into grading groups and then use that individual assign feature.
There's also a 30-second screencastify video that's linked in the resource page that I put in the chat as well.
Awesome. So all of the things for you. And so then when we talk about like utilizing assignment submissions, so one, here's a bunch of different ways that you can differentiate. There are sample assignments here, but what I really want to focus on is ways that you can use the actual assignments in Schoology to focus on differentiation. So when I go to add assignment, the one that we really focus on is the using your Google Drive assignments. And so as many of you know, what that does is it's going to force a copy, much like Google Classroom does for their assignments, but it forces a copy for every student. And then you can see all of those assignment submissions directly within Schoology while keeping the same functionality of Google Docs. And so what's nice about that is students can utilize all of those features. They can utilize the voice typing. You can hyperlink in different resources for students to use as they need. I used to hyperlink in like screencast of me like supporting a specific section. And so if a student had a question on section 2 and they just needed a refresher on what we're doing, what they can do is they can just click on that link, watch the video, and it's literally me going through that part of the assignment with them, breaking it down step by step, just like I would do in a small group. And so that's something that I want all of my students to be able to utilize. And so it's something that I'm going to build into an assignment that's built for everyone, rather than having the individual assign feature where only certain students have access to it. So you can definitely utilize the Google Doc features in that way. But if you don't attach a Google Doc to it, or slides or sheets, what will happen is you'll just get a space for students to upload an assignment. And so I'm actually going to pop into a different course where I am not an admin, so I can show you what this looks like. Steve, do you happen to have the link for EJ Sandbox?
Yes.
Awesome.
Give me 1 second.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in. Actually, this will probably be easier if I do it like this. So I'm going to go into one of his assignments here. I'm actually real fast going to take myself off as an admin. Okay. So what you'll students are see if you don't attach that Google Doc, so you don't use the Assign from Google Drive app, is they'll see the Submit Assignment button. When they click on the Submit Assignment button, they have 3 choices here. So they can upload. When I upload something, I can either upload a file that's saved to my computer. This is what I use when I want my students to like create something in Canva, download it as a PDF. When I do magazine projects with my kids, this is what I want them to upload it to. They can also upload an audio video recording here. So if I click this button, I get to choose between audio only or audio and video. And this allows my students who, maybe they're not the strongest writers. Maybe they need a lot of additional supports with writing. Maybe they are a multilingual student. And it might be useful for them to be able to record themselves talking out their answer rather than writing it down. This is a great opportunity for that. And so I can write from within Schoology. They can record their answer, post it onto that. And so they'll just need to allow use of their microphone. I hit the start recording button, and then I'll stop it. I can preview it. And then once I said, yep, this is great, I go ahead and insert that recording, and then I can submit it. In the Create tab, it's literally just going to give me like a text box. And so if you're having students respond to something, you just want like a quick answer, you can have them create it here. It gives you some pretty basic functionality of you just want them to type in an answer. And then the other thing they can do is they can pull things directly from their resources. I typically don't have kids work from this very often because it can be a little finicky, but this is where they can directly like pull from in their apps, their Google Drive resources. So anything that they have saved to their drive, maybe they made this is just a assignment submission for a presentation, and they could do their presentation in a variety of ways. If they happen to do a slide deck that they had like recording over, I could go ahead and pop in that. I'm going to go ahead and import my file there, and it's just going to take it straight through my Google Drive resources and put it into the assignment, keeping all the same functionality as the Google assignment that it has. So those are the different assignment types that are available directly through Schoology. Now, there's a huge variety of possibilities that opens up with the different apps outside of Schoology that you can start using with, Screencastify or Flipgrid or any of the other things, Edpuzzles. You can have students then go in and submit links. You can have them upload different things. Again, the audio video tool that's directly embedded in Screencastify, or not in Screencastify, in Schoology, is super powerful and is one less thing that like you necessarily have to teach your students to do. It's not a separate platform, so it can be a little less overwhelming to students to do that instead of to have to, learn how to use another platform and then upload that assignment submission to the assignment itself. So any questions about students submitting assignments?
Heather, are you signed in to your DPS Google account? It's set to anyone with a DPS account should be able to view.
Steve, I think I think she's talking about the sandbox to EJ's. And so we're going to have to make that a link.
Got it.
So we'll
So
get
just put
busy.
should I just put the access code in, Drea?
Yeah, you can do that too. So we'll put that access code in if you want to explore this sandbox course that EJ put together. You can go through the different assignments that he has posted there. And all of the assignments that he has posted, the actual assignment itself is also available here on slide 35. So for the next about 30 minutes, what we're going to do is you have time to work on an assignment, take an assignment that is coming up. Steve and I are here to bounce ideas off of if you need to, process through some stuff a little bit more verbally. Otherwise, if you have questions, you want us to walk through something specific, please unmute yourself and ask away. We're just going to be here as resources for you. And I'm going to stop talking so that you can get some stuff done.
And I'm going to turn my camera off, but I am going to still be here.